Hey guys, it's Daniel's son. Welcome back to the channel. As you can see, I have a drain pan full of pistons and rods, and these rods are actually titanium. So let's get started. The main update is that we have an editor for the channel. So he's a friend of mine from a long time ago, and he saw that I was doing YouTube, and he was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I had a YouTube channel back in the day.
Is not from a kit. This is a jig that he made based off of his previous designs. And those f***ing birds, if they don't shut the f*** up,
I'm gonna use a lot of harsh language, and basically it's gonna be inappropriate for their bird children to go to school and they're gonna get in trouble. Right?
that's right.
That's right.
He and I have very similar views in pretty much everything that comes to, that's basically cars. So he decided to help me out with editing, teach me a lot of stuff. The previous video is the one that he edited. Now, unfortunately, he didn't have a computer good enough for editing. His main profession is tuning, which you don't really need a powerful computer for that. So we were editing that video through TeamViewer, basically. And yeah, it was very hard. I did buy a new computer. I sent it over there. That's our new editing station. So we're working on new videos, new animation, some crazy editing. That's all coming next year. And I really wanted to update you guys on that because, again, he's a great friend of mine. So these are titanium rods, but before we get into these, I'm actually going to show you guys that the 456 cylinder heads were back from Florida. They've been completely redone. They did an amazing job. So I want to go ahead and show you guys the actual work being done because it's actually amazing. So look at this head. Ain't it crazy? It's super clean. Everything has been done perfectly. They reused, I'm pretty sure they reused most of it because I know obviously the valves were stamped. Some of them are not, which I think they were actually replaced, but this thing is clean. Now, both heads are the same now. They were cut equally. They are perfect. They are machined. They are flat. They're awesome. I'm really speechless. Now, yeah, the machining work was incredible, honestly. They both look great. They're even. I don't have to deal with any of that stuff. All I gotta do is bolt them on and then degree the cams and it'll be perfect. Now, I definitely want to say thank you to Ivo Performance and Muscle Machining. Muscle Machining did most of the work, and then my teacher was the one dealing with everything, making sure all the parts were getting there, everything was, the right specs were delivered to the machinist so he could do a proper job. But yeah, they both blew it out of the water. I'm ready to put that car back together and give it back to Hoovie. Now let's get back to these, and as you know, I put these in the parts washer. Now, that parts washer did its job. It got most of the dirt off, but I didn't spray them after. So it left this weird film on there. Now I have to clean all this residue. Luckily it's not really hurting anything, only in this case where all the rings got stuck in the pistons. So I gotta make sure these are all loose and I'm able to save them because again, they're extremely expensive. I don't really know how to get these loose, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use a bone tool, be very careful, kind of see if they'll come out. I'm not gonna take them off, I'm just gonna try to get them off the channel where they sit without breaking them. So on this video, I'm actually gonna talk about a few things on this engine, things that I can actually salvage, reuse, things that I might be able to bypass that I don't need anymore, and things that I'm gonna have to buy. There's really no other way because I don't have anything, and honestly, sometimes fabrication is really not the best option. Now, why are these pistons inside a drain pan? The reason being, I've been soaking them with fuel just to kind of loosen up any dirt or whatever. I didn't really have diesel on hand at the time, so I decided to just use some fuel, and now I've been using just penetrating oil to get the rings unstuck. They're stuck, and I think it's because of the parts washer. It built up a lot of sediment or whatever it was inside that parts washer, and it just got them all stuck. Now, obviously, I don't want to buy new ones, so I'm being extremely careful, taking every precaution so these don't break. So we're gonna work these out. Also, no, I don't want to take them off, so I'm just gonna work them out as best as I can, and hopefully they're fine. Now, before we move on to cleaning the pistons and getting those rings unstuck and clean some other stuff that I'm gonna clean on this video, I wanna talk about the parts that I can either reuse or modify or just buy new ones. But in this case, I'm gonna be able to reuse this guy right here, even though I don't need this heat exchanger. This right here is the transmission heat exchanger. Now, coolant runs through these pipes through this heat exchanger, which you can actually see the passages right there. These are a failure point on 360s. So what happens is whenever these fail, coolant actually gets into the gearbox. Why? Because these two lines right here run gear oil. So these are connected to the transmission. They run gear oil into the outside of these passages right here. And they cool down the gear oil for the transmission, being that the transmission is triple synchro. It uses a hydraulic piston to really jam the gears in. And yeah, it creates a lot of heat. It is intended to be driven hard and for a long period of time. Now, I don't need this anymore because we're not gonna be using a Ferrari transmission, possibly. So I'm not gonna need this guy anymore. So all we're gonna do is take it off and then just run a pipe straight from here, just a coolant hose, from here straight to the water pump. And I'm gonna show you how that's gonna look. So this is roughly how it's gonna look when it's mounted on the 360. You're gonna have those coolant pipes, you're gonna have the water pump, thermostat, whatever. So this seat sits right underneath the intake, and this right here sits kind of forward and then down a little bit, so this pipe can, line up with this. There's another coupler, but this is kind of the rough setup on how it looks on a 360. And like I said, we're gonna be able to eliminate this heat exchanger, which again is a failure point, and then we're just gonna run a coolant hose from here all the way to here, and then that's it. That'll be the fix for that. That's easy. It's not gonna be costly, so I'm happy for that. Also, these are expensive. So right here, I got some mass airflow sensors. These I am not going to reuse, possibly, depending on what intake I use on the car. Now, depending on what happens, I will be using something called Alpha N strategy. The Alpha N strategy uses the TPS signal, which is the throttle position sensor, and RPM signal. It uses these two things to calculate fueling for the engine. This is typically used whenever you use ITBs, since the signal for the map sensor is not very good, so you typically go Alpha N whenever you run ITBs, and that's what I'm hoping that I can do on this engine to lower its height. I'm gonna be using some ITBs, but I'll be talking on that point a little bit more on a different video. But yes, possibly I'm not gonna reuse these, which saves a lot of money because these are very expensive as well. This is the oil pump. This is a triple stage oil pump. Yes, I will be reusing this. This is a major win for this engine, and this one is in great condition. So yes, they are very expensive, obviously, but I will be reusing this because this is a plus. Now, I will be making a video here real soon talking and explaining the benefits of this bad boy right here on these 360 engines. Now, you know these are the hydraulic lifters for this engine. I am soaking them in oil, hoping that this is actually the bad one. So I don't, I don't think this one will ever pump up. Now, I am getting a few of these just as a safe measure, just if I have to replace them. But yeah, this is the only one that you can actually compress, as I mentioned in the previous video. So these are the coil packs. This engine actually came with them, and they look like they're in working condition. Hopefully they are. Now, there's something weird about these coils. these coils don't have igniters in them. So I'm gonna have to mount some external igniters, and I might be talking about that in a future video because we're gonna be going standalone. And yes, I can actually change these for other plugs. The reason I don't want to is because they come with a sealing surface that fits perfectly on the valve cover. So I don't want to get rid of that because it just looks good and they'll work. All I have to do is add an external igniter. These had the igniters inside of the ECU, which these, the stock ECUs are prone for failure, unfortunately. Like I said, I'm gonna try to reuse these. These are very expensive as well, like anything else in this engine. So I'm hoping that I can reuse all of them. Hopefully maybe find a spare one here and there to be able to fire up this engine. So this seems to be a lot of stuff, but basically is stuff that I can reuse and stuff that I cannot. So yes, we cannot reuse the bearings. So we're gonna need a full set of bearings. These are crankshaft and connecting rod, and then thrust bearings, all the bearings. There's another couple of bearings that are on the head for the variators that we need to replace as well. Unfortunately, yes, these are not the most expensive from what I've seen so far, but I would not be surprised if this would be a big chunk of change right here. Now we also need to replace these. These are like a deflection bearing, so whenever the belt deflects, it kind of rides on this a little bit. These are not meant to tension the belt, they're just meant to avoid deflection at higher RPM. So yeah, the bearings are a little bit worn out. These do spin constantly, so I'm gonna replace them, might as well. I might be able to even just replace the internal bearing with something a little bit cheaper to save some money on these. These are 2 tensioner bearings for the accessory belts. I might not even use both of them. I might just need one. This one seems in pretty good condition. This one's burnt, worn out, or it just melted. It looks like it was riding on something. I think it was the front cover for the timing belts. So this one's wiped. This one's wiped out. This is done. Okay, so these are the bearings that go behind these sprockets. These are the sprockets where the timing belt connects at the bottom. These are actually connected mechanically with a set of gears to the crankshaft. Then you got 2 separate gears, which I'm actually gonna be talking about the concept why Ferrari did this in a future video. Now I'm gonna have to replace these ones because I have to break them to get them out because they're usually stuck. So yes, these are the bearings that go behind these gears. They are the ones that go on the shaft. So these 2 gears are where the timing belt connects to. These are near the harmonic balancer, and they're connected mechanically to the crankshaft by a set of gears, and that's how it all spins and whatever. Now I'm gonna be talking about these in a future video, like a lot of other stuff, but yeah, it's really cool how Ferrari did that, and and the reason why too, so definitely stay tuned for that one. Now these right here are the timing belt tensioners. Yes, these are getting replaced. These are expensive usually. I think they're like a couple $100s a piece, or like $300 a piece if I remember correctly. They're extremely expensive. Luckily they sell a kit. I think that kit is between $1,500 and $2,000. So they come with these. They come with these bearings, which we also have to replace. This is where these actually tension the belt. Now luckily I can actually reuse these. These are where the bearing bolts onto, and the tensioner pushes on this. This is basically the whole assembly. I can reuse these little arms. They usually get corroded right here. These are not, so I'm gonna be able to reuse these. Just grease them up and they'll be fine. These are also very expensive, so that's unfortunate, but yes. Now again, yes, these are out. New ones, not gonna take a risk on that. We also got these to reuse. Now, something very important about projects, especially when you got the engine completely in boxes, is missing parts. So if you have a lot of missing parts, it'll nickel and dime your dreams away. You're done, because a lot of this stuff is like $10, $15 a pop, and as you can see, I need 3 for each side, so that starts to build up, and eventually it's just too expensive, it's not worth it, or it might just drain your bank account and you're done. You can't continue, or even make the project take longer, which always sucks. This is why I'm talking about all these little different parts, even though they're not very important. There's stuff that I don't have to buy. This is the alternator bracket. It's in good condition, so I'm happy about that, so I don't have to buy it. Same thing with this bracket. This pulley is one of the pulleys for the accessory belts, obviously. This one's new, so I might be able to reuse it because it feels pretty good. Actually, it does not feel pretty good. Probably replace it. And then we have the harmonic balancer, which again, don't have to buy it. They're expensive. You know, a penny saved is a penny earned, I guess. Now these are just some of the things that I have to address on this engine. As like I said, these I don't have to replace them, those I do. And I can start building up this list to see how much this is really gonna cost. That's why I'm trying to salvage as much as I can to keep the bill low. So again, a penny saved is a penny earned. These are a lot of the sensors that came with the engine, which again, if I can save some money, that always helps. So we got some cam sensors. So these are cam position sensors. It just comes with two, obviously one for each head. Then we have 4 knock sensors. Now, fortunately, I only need 2 because the ECU that I'm planning to use on this engine only has availability for 2 inputs. So that means I got some spares. So here I got 2 crankshaft sensors. Yes, 2. This engine actually originally came with 2 ECUs, so that's why you have to have a crankshaft for each side. And yeah, you just put them in there. It has 2 reference points for each bank. Now with the new ECU, I'm not gonna need that. I'm only gonna need 1, so that means I have a spare. It also came with 2 wideband sensors. Now, probably not gonna reuse these. Why? Because I got plenty around the shop from other builds, other projects and stuff like that the shop had. So I'm probably gonna be able to replace these, no issue. Yes, I'm gonna be using 2, 1 for each bank. The ECU that I'm using will have provisions for both. Now this will be the fun part. Every bolt that goes to this engine is in this box right here. I've been collecting them because they just throw them in some buckets, so I've been throwing everything in here. Luckily, I know where every bolt goes in, so I'm not too worried about that, but hopefully I got all of them. This will be fun. So I know this video wasn't very exciting, and the reason being is because I leave for Florida tomorrow. So I'm gonna go ahead and close out the video right here. I'm very excited to go down to Florida. I miss a lot of people down there, friends, family, you know, my teachers, I Performance. I always go down there. They're my teachers, man, and yeah, they're a really big influence on what I do today, so definitely excited to see them. On that note, I'm gonna go ahead and ask you guys to subscribe, like, and share the video. That really helps me out. It's really gonna help us put that Ferrari engine back together, because even by salvaging a lot of stuff, it's still gonna be extremely expensive.